as a little, as I say, a black kid from the West Side, to represent the Chamber of Commerce. There's a progression. You either you remain as staff.
Yep.
You look at this and say, hey, I could be elected. You may not get 100% of whatever it is you need.
Right.
And even, getting half, 50% of what you need is a win. I remember I was in state capitol. We had a piece of legislation up. There was something going on, and, my cell phone rings, and I flip it open. And the woman answers, is this Donovan Pepper? And I said, yes. She goes, please hold for Mr. Culver. I was nobody sent.
Right.
So to speak.
Right.
This role. But the fact that Jerry Roper took a chance on me and said, hey, I want you to represent me at the city council, at the Cook County board, and even in Springfield at the state level.
Welcome to the intersection. RJ McMahon here. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the CEO of Leyden, and I am really fired up for today's guest, Donovan Pepper. And Donovan, really a great journey, really kind of an interesting story that about how Leyden and Donovan Pepper kind of came together a couple of years ago, right? So we'll dive into that. Donovan's got some vast experiences, external government relations, just different levels of engagement. And as you all know that have been coming to watch us, the intersection, business, philanthropy, civic communities coming together to better our world, right? And Donovan will have some great insights along those lines. Before we jump in, thank you to all those folks who have liked and commented. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Really interesting content, and I think you'll really enjoy what Donovan has to say. So, Donovan, welcome.
Well, great. Thank you very much.
Oh, my gosh. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, just fired up, right? So this is great. And our worlds have kind of, we've been kind of this, right? Every once in a while we see each other, and it's always good. I always love seeing you, right? And then time goes, and then we don't, and then
exactly.
And here we are, right?
We are.
So yeah, very cool.
You finally nailed me down. You got me here.
It was kind of embarrassing. I was actually grabbing his leg, right, like a 3-year-old, and I wouldn't let him leave the room until he agreed to come on board, right?
Not quite. You didn't twist my arm that bad, but or my leg.
There we go. Hey, stop the presses. RJ McMahon here, CEO of Leyden. I'm here with
Michael Weber, and we're here to tell you about the Mighty Oak. It's our annual fundraising event, and it's our 70th anniversary.
Please join us. We've got America's greatest cover band from the 80s and 90s, 16 Candles.
We'll have live auction, silent auction, raffle, and tons of prizes.
You need to be here. Join us. Come on out. Riverside Golf Club, April 23rd.
Check out our website to buy tickets.
Right here. So again, just really grateful for you to join us, and where we are seated here at Oak Park. You grew up not far from here, right? So
I grew up actually right down the street, from this building right here. I lived here, so yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, if that's okay.
Please.
So it's interesting enough. So we grew up on the near west side up until we were about sixth grade. And when I say we, I have a twin brother. And I have 2 sisters.
Okay.
And my brother and I actually, in 6th grade, we came to Oak Park to live with my dad. My parents were separated.
Okay.
And so we came to live with my dad here in Oak Park, and we actually continued to go to grammar school, elementary school in Chicago at a Catholic school in Chicago. So we did not go to any of the local grammar schools here, elementary schools here. So even our experience with a secondary school was completely unique.
Right.
And so when we started at OPRF, my brother and I, luckily over the summer prior to OPRF, we got to know some of the local kids.
Nice.
More so. And so we got to know during high school, we got to really get to know a lot of people once we were at OPRF. But I say that to say we lived multiple places in Oak Park during that period of time we moved here. But one of the times where we ended was right down the street from this building, right here on Chicago Avenue.
Right.
So right at Chicago and Cuyler Avenue. And so my initial experience with Leyden was in high school, as I shared with you.
Fasten your seatbelts, gang. This is so great. I love this. Carry
Absolutely.
on.
It was, so I will tell you, so my brother and I, we started working, our first real job was at a restaurant here in Oak Park, Philanders of Oak Park.
Sure.
I think everyone
Big fan, right? Back in the day.
Back in the day, Dennis and Bunny Murphy owned Philanders, and they took a chance on two great little kids. We started off as busboys there, and then
So
ultimately
great.
worked in the bar area, and then ultimately became servers and all that. But during that initial period when we were there in high school, we had learned through a neighbor of ours that Oak Leyden, the facility across the street from us, needed some additional help for some of the programs, some of the contracts that you in your vocational program.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, and I shared this with you already, and I'll share it with the viewers here. I think we did it for at least 4 summers, three to 4 summers, maybe all from freshman year through senior year, I believe, and even beyond. We were able to work there, occasionally throughout the summers, in addition to our other jobs we were doing. So I say, and as I shared with you, it was the absolute best experience that we had. And I say we because my brother and I, we both talk about this to this day. Working alongside the other vocational, the people in the program, the clients in the program, and really got to know these people personally. And, we were working side by side, on one of the lines, doing packaging items and doing that. But even in the lunchroom when we would break for lunch and just to talk with them. And then I used to see
their characters. Are they not?
God, they were just wonderful human beings. And we used to take the bus occasionally.
Okay.
A few of them took the bus. And so we would wait out with them at the bus stop. And then we would take the bus if we were going to what's now the Blue Line.
Exactly.
The Congress Douglas Hill, or the Lake Street.
We're dating ourselves here, Donovan.
Exactly, we are. No Green Line, no Blue Line.
No, Lake Street Congress.
Exactly, that's what it was. But I remember standing right here at Chicago Avenue, waiting for the Pace bus, take us down. And anyway, getting to know these individuals, they were great. And we had a wonderful, I guess he would have been his name was Dwight. He was like the production manager or whatever at the time. I don't remember exactly, but I think his name was Dwight. Wonderful man, and we really got to know him, and he would call us, ask for our assistance. But working alongside these individuals just was incredible. Now, one thing I failed to mention, which I should have, for about a 1-year period during these years in high school, my grandmother came to live with us.
Oh, really?
My dad wanted my grandmother to live with us, and because she had a son, my dad's brother, who had developmentally disabled. He was developmentally disabled.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
And from birth. And they moved here when he was probably about 26 years old.
Okay.
And he had never been in any facility, residential facility, or any program. My grandmother wanted to care for him at home. They lived in Alabama at the time. My dad wanted to be closer to them. So we got to live with my uncle.
Oh my gosh.
Who was developmentally disabled. But he was a wonderful person, and he couldn't talk much and wasn't very vocal. But he was just such a wonderful man. And anyway, just living with him just for 1 year, while my grandmother wanted to move back to some warm weather, move back to Alabama.
One winter, that's all it takes,
exactly. She said, "No, I think I'm done." And so my dad was a little disappointed, but in any case, it was a great experience. So not only were we working, with people, clients from the program, but even at home, we got to see how it is, and in hindsight, as I think about it, unfortunately, my uncle lived till he was about 38 years old. I think 38 or 39. But my grandmother had cared for him that entire time.
Amazing. Just amazing.
Absolutely. And in hindsight, I wish she had utilized a program like Oak Leyden, and that she had, done some of those things. But, she's from a southern town, and she's very, But with that said, having that experience of working here at Oak Leyden and then going home and being with someone physically, helping them, prepare food, helping them get dressed, helping them do these things, it was a wonderful experience to have. So
That's so great. That's so great. And again, thank you for sharing that. When you first shared that you worked with our folks, right? That blew me away. And now the backstory is just, that's wonderful, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
That there's something in there, right? And it doesn't leave you either, right?
And look, one thing I failed to mention is, I think we were being paid the minimum wage.
Right,
again,
right.
I was a kid. My brother and I were kids, so making money, addition,
any money, right?
And we, you guys paid very well.
Right,
it was over minimum wage. It was great, and we just loved the experience of working with people who, again, had the same passion, same drive, same sense of humor. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it's a rewarding time, right?
Yeah,
There's no doubt about it. And fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of that work has gone away, right? And because for a lot of reasons, and some of it, is well placed. Some of it, it's a shame because there's still a lot of folks within our world at Oak Leyden still refer to that as the workshop, right? Even though that there hasn't been work really being done in years, right? And so it's interesting, but there's a lot to be said for that sense of accomplishment and working together alongside folks that really take it very seriously and that they're really committed to the output, right? So
it was, again, just a great experience, learning experience, and again, I think it's part of one of the things that's helped me achieve, some modicum of success in my world because of having that experience and background.
That's great. That's great. And I think all of those experiences, we never know how they're going to kind of impact the next step, right? And we're on the journey. You'll kind of reflect on that, right? So it's lovely hearing that it remains in there. So thanks for sharing the story. Really appreciate that. So OPRF,
yes.
Graduate from OPRF. Like, okay, I want to get into politics and government relations. How do I do this? Well, maybe that wasn't the first step, right?
It was not the first step. Very interesting. So I was one of these guys. My twin brother, my brother went to aeronautical school. He went to aeronautical school. He ultimately ended up going to the Air Force.
Wow.
And he's been in the Air Force ever since. Or now he's in the Space Force. He's a 2-star general.
Wow.
In the Space Force. But he went in that direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted, I knew I wanted to go to college. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And politics was not in the picture when I left high school. It was not. So I subsequently went to Triton College.
Okay.
And because of my experience working at Philanders.
Right.
And actually, when I went away to college down in Springfield at UIS, I used to come home every other weekend to still work.
Oh,
at
interesting.
Philanders. So that was actually how I ended up paying for college when I went there. I guess I'm predating myself. I'm jumping ahead real quick.
That's okay.
So Triton, I signed up. I got involved in Triton. I thought I wanted to run a restaurant or a hotel. So I looked at
after the Philanders experience, right?
Yeah, so that's why I was like, hospitality management.
I can do this.
That's what I want to do.
Right.
I want to run a hotel. I want to run a restaurant. This is what so I signed up for classes at Triton, being a hospitality major.
How long did that last?
Well, when they told me I had to learn food prep, I had to take food prep classes and learn how to prepare food. And I was like, are you kidding me? No, I just want to run a restaurant.
I want to be on the front of the house.
Yes. I don't need to take a cooking class. I don't need to. Now, of course, later in life, it's funny because I love to cook. I'm a big foodie.
That's a little ironic.
It is very ironic. But nonetheless, I segues. I had to take some electives, and I decided to take a political science class. And it was at Triton, and it was generally taking that political science class. I got involved in a school program, kind of like Model UN.
Okay, sure.
But it was called Model Illinois Government.
Okay.
And it was essentially a simulation of the legislature. And Triton College actually historically had a very strong delegation of Model Illinois Government.
Interesting.
So you go across the state, you go to Springfield, you participate with other colleges and universities across the state, and then you are in this program. I literally fell in love with it. My first time to Springfield. I'd never gone to Springfield prior.
Wow.
Our classes never took
never
to the state capitol.
Right.
But during this time with Triton, I got involved with the Model Illinois Government Club, got involved with politics, political science. I started enjoying the classes, the coursework. So I immediately I got involved in student
just that
politics.
Boom, right?
Yeah.
That epiphany.
That epiphany, and I got involved in student government. And lo and behold, I found out about this little school in the prairie I'd never heard of before. It was called Sangamon State University.
Right?
Like,
What?
what is this? Where is this? It's the state capital. And luckily, Triton, a lot of the former students at Triton had transferred to Sangamon
Interesting,
State.
really?
So, I learned about it, sight unseen.
Right.
I decided to apply and got accepted and went down there.
Boom.
Yeah. So it was, again, and so that was literally the start. Now, Sangamon State, during my time as a student there, ultimately became part of the University of Illinois.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the U of I system, actually, I was student body president at the time.
Oh, wow.
U of I was essentially merging with the system. So
That must have been an interesting time.
it was. It was a great time. It was, a little nervous.
Sure.
Because the school had been around about 20 so years.
Okay.
At that time, there were a lot of folks who were very anti, didn't want the big
Of course,
state,
right.
flagship system to come in and take over what was more of a public affairs, upper institution,
Right.
University. But around the time higher ed was doing a lot with the 2-year institutions like Governor State University.
Yes.
So Sangamon State was like a GSU, just
Okay.
2 years upper division and
Right.
graduate program. And so there was a lot going on in the reformation of higher ed around that time. So, for me as a student, I thought it was a great opportunity to be a part of the flagship system
Right.
in Illinois. And so, but it was, and the university president at the time, she was very pro merger.
Great.
And so we worked out, it was really a great combination that we could work together me from a student
Right.
perspective, her from the faculty and administration perspective on how this would look. So
And how unique to have a seat at the table for all of that,
it was.
right?
It was rather unique, and I have to say, and I should say I was student body vice president, and I ascended to that role.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, the president had to step down, and so I became, and then I got elected to the role. But with that said, it was a great opportunity to be there at the time when, again, this major shift in higher education was taking place in the state capitol.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well done.
So
and then you stayed for your master's,
So,
right?
yeah, so I actually, yes, I decided, hey, if I'm here,
Might as well.
might as well do this. Sangamon State, or UIS had a great program where you had internships, and one of the great things about this institution is you have an opportunity to work in and around state government. So, and again, as a political science major, it was a perfect place to
Boom.
be.
Talk about coming together,
Perfect
right?
place to be. I had actually had an opportunity to look at American University or Georgetown and GW in DC, but I was like, no, I would rather be a big fish in a small pond
Right.
rather than the other way around. So I ended up going. That's why.
Little
chose
did you
that.
know that you'd be spending a little bit of time in DC in the
Just a
future.
little- exactly. Going out there on the other side. But no, it was a great opportunity to stay. I did an internship in the legislature.
Awesome.
I got to work in the state government for the Speaker of the House at the time.
Okay. Who's Speaker then?
The Speaker was Mike Madigan.
Okay,
at the time.
okay.
Yep. So
He had a pretty good run. He had a long run,
he had
right?
a very long run, and I learned so much.
I'm sure.
From him. And then after the internship, I stayed on.
Okay.
I stayed on the appropriations research staff.
Wow.
And had a great opportunity. I dealt with issues from higher ed. Actually, I was involved in a lot of the restructuring of the higher ed.
Wow.
I redid that with Lieutenant Governor Custer at the time.
Right.
I also had an opportunity to do issues around transportation, consumer protection, and things of that nature, as
Wow.
well as doing all the public safety appropriations.
How great.
So yeah, it was a great experience.
Right.
Yeah, wonderful experience.
That's really awesome, right? That's how great. And I'm sure during those days you're like, wow, I can't believe I come to work in the Capitol, right, in the Rotunda, right, and coming and going just like it's normal, right? And we'll kind of that's a little foreshadowing for some things coming down the pipe, right? So at what point did you say, you know what, I don't know that I want to work in government. I want to work with government.
Sure. I think there's a natural progressions, especially most legislative staffers. There's a progression. You either you remain as staff.
Yep.
You look at this and say, hey, I could be elected.
Right,
I could run for office.
Yeah.
I've been working with these people. I can go run. Which, by the way, I should mention, one of the things we did and most staffers do every few years during the election season, we would leave the payroll for the state role we had, and then we would go and run
interesting.
campaigns.
Interesting.
So I did have an opportunity to work on various campaigns.
Oh,
for the
nice.
State House and run a few campaigns
In the state of Illinois? Everything in Illinois?
Yes, in Illinois. Yep, at the State House level. And so, and actually.
How'd you like that?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I mean, I think I'm more of a policy guy than a true campaign.
Right.
But it was just a great experience. And I think one of my, I can't remember if it was 94 or 90, yeah, it had to be 94 or 96, when I was running a State House race right near where President Obama, then then candidate Obama was running for a Senate seat right near our district. And so that's when I first got to learn about some guy named Barack Obama was, but it was during we call it the coordinated campaign.
Okay.
But neither here nor there. It was a great time, exciting time. Unfortunately, my candidate didn't win that time. But when I went back down to Springfield, working in my legislative staff capacity, I got to meet then State Senator Barack Obama for the first time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right?
Which was great. And I met him right in the rotunda there.
Wow.
One night, late at night. And anyway, just a wonderful guy. I had actually read his book, his first book, Dreams from My Father, during the break between the election and
going
inauguration.
Back. Yeah.
So it was a great opportunity to have read that book through some Senate staffers who were friends of mine. I said, "Oh, you got to read this. You should read this, book.
Right? Yeah.
Stunning book." So anyway, I got to meet him, talk with him, and work with him, and it was just a great experience.
Right. That's so good. That's so good. So how long did you spend then as a staffer?
So I did about 4.5 years.
Okay.
Almost 5 years there. I ended up going to work. So I decided, being a quote unquote lobbyist is probably what I wanted to do. I knew, I enjoyed the time working in staff, but this was an opportunity to, affect change from outside the process.
Right.
Take all the things I had learned and try to use them. So I actually had an opportunity. I should have mentioned this. I met my now wife.
Love it.
Girlfriend on campus at Sangamon State back in the day.
Well done.
And
well done, you.
Yeah, she had moved to Chicago.
Okay.
Actually, and so I was still in Springfield looking for an opportunity to come back to North to hopefully,
there we go.
Stop this long distance thing. And so
You're tired of driving 55, right? Oh.
Exactly. Let me tell you. So I subsequently took a job as the government affairs person for Amtrak. Actually.
Okay.
We were looking for a Midwest lobbyist.
Nice.
So I got to utilize some of the transportation background that I had and all that, and represent a company. And what was neat about that was it was a role that had me do multiple state governments. State
Nice.
Lobbying in multi-states.
Kind of broaden
the base. Yeah, broaden the base, and so got to work in a lot of the Midwest state capitals, which was really a neat thing, which would actually be a precursor to what I was doing up until months back.
Right, exactly. So, as you're looking to transition, right, and are there a lot of opportunities, or did you really have to be kind of locked in, like this is one of only a handful?
No,
to make that transition? What did it seem like?
In government relations particularly, you have to decide which type of lobbyist you want to be.
Interesting. Unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So, there are so many different opportunities. You can, lobbying has different facets. One, you can be a contract lobbyist where you are hired to represent different clients.
Yes.
In different issues, which is what I do today.
Right, exactly.
Which is, again, different for me to a certain degree. But with that said, or you can be an in-house lobbyist, representing a corporate entity.
Yes.
Or a nonprofit entity.
Exactly, yes.
Or a trade association, which I did for a few years.
Right.
With the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce or with the Illinois Restaurant Association.
Right, exactly.
Which was some of
so
my
you got
background.
back to that restaurant, right?
I did. I ultimately got there and had a wonderful time representing that. And so you could do that, or you can be an issue advocate. You have a particular issue that you care about.
This is what I bring forward.
Exactly.
Right?
So
then people jump, or organizations jump in and out, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So those are really the types of advocates you can be. And again, I've done the trade association advocacy. I've done the corporate advocacy.
Exactly.
And now I'm doing the contractual type engagement where I represent different clients on different matters.
Right.
So
which again, kind of the client-based contractual is relatively new, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how does that compare with the other stops?
Sure. First of all, I should preface this. Prior to taking on this role at Cozen O'Connor, I was with Walgreens for almost 20 years.
Right.
I was in-house lobbyist for Walgreens, representing them in different facets, different roles. But I was the national director of local government affairs, where I oversaw all local government issues across all 50 states in Puerto Rico.
I think that's kind of a big job, right? Is that just my perspective?
It's a job. It's a job. When I started at Walgreens, I think we were only in about 30, 31 states at that time. So from that time, we did expand and grow. And so there was a lot of more, state government responsibility.
Right.
But also I focused more on the local side. So working with cities and counties and units of government.
Right. And that's a whole nother ball game, right?
Yeah.
It can be, in my words, not yours, right? Can be like little fiefdoms, right?
No question. No question about that.
It's the age old. The good news is this municipality. The bad news is it's not transferable, right?
Exactly. and I will say state governments are like that too.
Okay.
I will say operating in different state capitals. Every state capital has a little bit different nuances. And again, my experience early on helped me understand that all states don't operate like Illinois.
Right.
All states don't operate like Louisiana.
Right.
which might be a good thing.
Right. Exactly. We'll leave that to the audience to decide.
Exactly. But with that said, it's the cities and towns and all that. Yeah, very uniquely different. But at the end of the day, they all share the same goals.
Right. Exactly. And they're looking to better their communities, right?
Exactly.
And Walgreens has always been a good partner, right?
Exactly.
And so, I'm curious, let's jump back to Walgreens then, and let's spend a little bit of time there, because you were, you held significant responsibility, right, throughout and held different roles internally. Mm-hmm. And each one, you're in rooms where, things need to get done, right? So talk about kind of the prep and then how that gets executed when you may be kind of prepping for your CEO to jump in or anyone along the leadership team, right? So, and you're literally the boots on the ground, right?
No pun intended.
Right. Exactly.
No, again, I think no matter what industry, what issue, what type, there's always preparation that goes into
Absolutely.
that and how you prepare. And again, it really depends on the issue specifically and what the potential solutions are to that problem. And again, how do you attack it?
Right.
Is it something that you go in as the corporate entity and talk specifically to?
Interesting.
Or is it something that generally impacts others in the space? And then do you work with your trade association that may have, other individuals who are impacted or interested in that topic?
Right.
And do you work with them to advocate on your behalf?
Oh, I like that.
So it really depends on specifically how, what that problem is and how you want to solve it or solve for it. It's but again, there's different ways to do it.
Sure.
And in some cases, it makes sense for you to be, I hate to say the term, this talking head. Right. To advocate
Absolutely.
directly. And then sometimes, maybe it's something we shouldn't be out front on, but we can still have our advocates or as they say, third-party advocates. People who support what you do, people who understand it and understand the impact you bring to that community, to that issue, to that role.
But maybe not Walgreens' voice leading that.
Exactly.
Right?
So it really depended upon that. And, and I think, every CEO, every leader might have different styles about how you do that. And so, and sometimes you just, you go off of based on what their needs are, what they want to do, and how you want to pursue it. But, generally speaking, on issues of pharmacy, issues specifically related to the impact on a pharmacy, we would be very vocal. We would let people understand that, our ability to keep doing what we're doing for healthcare, for communities, was it dependent upon, good policy or bad policy.
Right.
And so, but, if it was something more general to retail, something generally about, environmental impact or wage and labor, things like that, because they probably impacted more so than just us, we would work
Partner
with
with.
others, partners
Right,
with others.
right.
Yeah, so it really just depends on your strategies based on that.
Yeah, sure. And you're also, having known you and seen you and watched you kind of from the cheap seat, so to speak, there's no doubt that you're able to kind of navigate different rooms, right? And ask questions and be engaged and I'm sure you're not thinking, all right, I'm going to bring my playbook out and we're going to do this. We're going to run this play every time. No, you have to read the room, right?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, like that, just that ability to okay, I know that we could go down this path, but we're probably better off.
Yes. Well, I think one of the things that you get in tune to in this business is, you may not get 100% of whatever it is you need.
Right.
And even, getting half, 50% of what you need is a win. And you need to look at that as a win. Yes, we may want 100% increase in reimbursement,
Right.
We may want to, this ordinance to be completely dead
Right.
and no longer,
Right.
Impacted. But if it's amended and it's mitigated, so it's not as bad, that's a win.
Right.
And you have to see that. And so, and even getting, 50%, 80% of what you want or need, that's a win. And
Completely.
So, but some people don't see it that way.
No.
They're like, no, it's all or nothing. If I don't get this, then,
Right.
I'm taking my marbles and I'm leaving.
going home, right.
And it's in this business. And again, it's, they say with lobbying, you have no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, And it is true because you have to understand there could be legislators, there could be elected officials, aldermen, city council members, mayors who have supported you in your issues on everything.
Right. Until
that one issue. And okay, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater for that one issue.
Right.
I always use my story, and I was sharing with you earlier about Senator Obama.
Right.
Or President Obama.
Right.
When he was a state senator, so I used to represent the Chamber of Commerce, Chicagoland Chamber. So obviously we're a business organization, business. One thing I used to say about Senator Obama, then Senator Obama, State Senator Obama, he would always allow me to come in and sit in and talk to him. He would always let, my member, myself, whoever, sit down, listen to us, and hear our issues, whether it was for a piece of legislation or against it. And the one thing I always say about him, 9 times out of 10, he was opposed to me.
Interesting.
He 9 times, probably 5.
But still invited you in, welcomed you.
Always invited him in, always listened, always went back and forth. And, but the best part about that was he would tell you right then and there, Donovan, I disagree. I can't support that. And I would say, thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. But again, that one issue, I'm with you.
Right.
Great. I can support this. I don't have to find out which way the caucus is going. I don't have to find out how my leadership is. I'm going to vote with you. I'm going to vote against you. And that's what you appreciate. You appreciate that about people. And I will say, President Obama was the same way that I saw from the state level to the U.S. Senate to the
White House.
The White House. So, but I use that as an example. Is again, even though I was obviously not happy that he didn't support my positions. We always had a respectful relationship. I supported him in his run for Congress.
Right. Interesting.
Of course his run for the Senate,
Right.
and obviously his support, running for the U.S. The presidency, the White House. But again, despite being on opposite sides of policy issues,
right,
you still respect the individual. You still work with them, and so that's always the one thing I always find that people in this business. Either if you're successful, you understand that.
Right. And I imagine, and just a phenomenal, example. But your idea that, even if we get 50% of X, that's still a win, right? And we've talked just kind of internally within Oak Leyden that we don't do a very good job of celebrating our wins and celebrating our successes, right? And feels like we're kind of just on the treadmill and we just got to keep going because if you stop when you're on the treadmill, it knocks you off, right?
You get it jarred quickly.
Right. So how were you able to frame some of these wins as wins versus we didn't get everything we wanted?
Yeah. Yeah, I think again, when depending on the organization or the entity that you're representing,
Right.
Whether it was at Walgreens, the Chamber of Commerce, or even the restaurant association, I think you have to be able to communicate. So obviously communication
Clearly,
is
yeah.
it. And
Which you can do pretty well. I'm not sure if you've noticed that over time,
I don't know.
but you've got that skill.
Thank you. Well, you communicate, you let people know that, first of all, you set the stage, during dire fiscal challenges, political winds that are going one way or the other.
Right, yep.
And you have to set the stage and let people know that, guess what? In this environment today, what we were successful for is amazing, is great, because it could have been completely.
All of these, right?
Yes.
Right.
So you have.
Here's the headwind that we're
here's the
going against,
exactly.
right?
Here's the headwind. You don't have the tailwind pushing you this year. Next year the tailwind may be there. So
right,
great.
you don't know.
So,
Right.
But you have to set the stage to communicate that with people, to let them know that we are in unique times. The circumstances are are very challenging.
Very challenging.
So celebrate the win, even if it's minuscule.
Right.
It's still a win.
It's still a win. Right,
Yeah.
right.
And so again, I think you just have to communicate that to the powers that be, whether it's your membership, your members, whether it's your boss,
Exactly,
or
absolutely.
whoever.
Right.
Yeah, I tell my wife that.
Right.
Honey, celebrate the win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Honey, that wasn't a win. Right.
Exactly.
I
We
thought
got
it was.
something.
I swear.
Right.
Exactly. It felt like a win. Right.
Oh, I'm gonna get in trouble. I knew I should have brought my wife.
Right.
to this,
We're all living the same lives,
Yes,
right? And
yeah.
I was chatting with a couple buddies that I play hoops with, and one of us was talking about something with their bride, and I just started chuckling, like we're all living
We're all
this,
in it.
right? It's just different stages of it, right?
Exactly.
But it's because frankly, we're all guys and we're knuckleheads, right? So you have to factor that in
You're
along the way
absolutely
too, right?
Absolutely, I do for sure. Good.
Guilty.
We're the
Guilty.
same.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly. So we got that going too,
Yes.
right? Yeah. In addition to the hairline and some
Yeah.
other things, so we're this is good. I'm learning a lot. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling good, right? That we're getting connected to this all, right?
Love
This is good. So I love that. I think setting appropriate expectations, that's important for all of us to know, right? That we should. Let's think about it. Let's try to read the tea leaves before we're in the room, right? And just kind of figure out, okay, what can be a win here, right? And not worry about it. I know someone who does a lot of business in Japan, and when you're negotiating with an entity in Japan, you have to make sure that you have several wins for them, even though it's really no skin off of my nose, right? But there are 10 things.
Yeah.
They need to walk away with 3 or 4 that are wins, that are deemed wins, even though we won the negotiation.
Right.
But they have to be able to go back to their team and say, we got these 3 things or these 4 things, right? And that's important, right? And I think it's really good to kind of put yourselves in those shoes to know that, because we're in it for the long play, right? And we could just view this as scorched earth and be done, right?
Take your marbles and go.
Exactly.
Right.
And who does that benefit?
Right. And like I think, again, if you are playing for the long game, then that's where you have to always be. Again, unfortunately, there are individuals who, and again, depending on the circumstances,
Totally.
there could be just a short game, a short-term thing.
Right.
And if we don't get this done today, then guess what? We have to pack up and go elsewhere. And I get that. And again, that makes sense. And,
Right.
And depending on that issue or concern or business, interest, that might be the case.
Right.
But if you are situated here, you're not planning to leave, you've got, an infrastructure in place, then be prepared for the long game.
Right. And kind of enter it and just process it in those terms,
Exactly.
right? And I think we'd all be a little bit better off, right? If we, because 90% of us are in it for the long game, right? But it feels like there are a lot of short-term decisions that are made that don't take all that into context.
Exactly. No, that's very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So your time at Walgreens and we were chatting before the camera started rolling about a couple of pictures that you've had, and we won't get into where we saw those or where they were put, but I'm sure there were, I just really want to kind of unpack a little bit of this idea that, you're a kid from West Side, lived in Oak Park, back living in Oak Park, and when did it hit you along the way that, oh my gosh, I am in this room and how did I get here, right? Like, talk a couple of those stories. Like, you can't really show your cards as you're in the moment, but when you walk out of whatever that room is, wherever that is, or this meeting of, with these CEOs or this political advisor or this politician or whatever, right?
Sure.
Talk a little bit about that. Well, bring us into those rooms.
Yeah,
right?
well, I'll tell you, going back, and one of the experiences, that I referenced earlier was, representing the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
And, and I will tell you, the former CEO, the longtime CEO, his name was Jerry Roper.
Okay.
And Jerry, hired me, didn't know who I was.
Right.
I was a little, as I say, a black kid from the West Side, to represent the Chamber of Commerce, which, was somewhat significant. Now, I will say, there were a lot of people who just assumed that I was a very conservative person.
Sure, right.
I'd worked for Democrats and, been a little more.
Right.
I was always a very pro-business Democrat. And so I think that helped me when I was offered the job to go there. But again, I had no, I was nobody sent.
Right.
So to speak, given, this role. But the fact that Jerry Roper took a chance on me and said, hey, I want you to represent me and the business community.
Right.
At the city council, at the Cook County Board, and even in Springfield at the state level. And
that's huge.
It was. Again, I was, I remember there were a few moments like, wow.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Right?
And we had, CEOs of banks, airlines, hotel companies.
And those people took your call, right?
Yes.
Pretty cool, right?
Oh, yeah. Which you remind me, I'll tell you another story at the Restaurant Association.
Oh, even better.
But anyway, but I remember being in meetings with them, and one of the big things I worked on back then was the O'Hare expansion.
Okay.
Was expanding O'Hare, and that was obviously a big issue for the business community.
Huge.
Ensuring that, we remain the leader
right.
in air travel here in Chicago. And so I remember a lot of meetings with, CEOs, airlines, business community, really advocating for this with Mayor Daley, along with others. And so it was, I remember a few of those meetings. I was like, wow. I'm in the meetings with these big dogs, and there's just this little poor black kid from the West Side, So anyway, but again, that was a great experience, and again,
phenomenal.
It was,
right?
And that was the first time I had that feeling.
Right.
But I'll segue a quick second. I used to work for the Illinois Restaurant Association.
Yes.
As I referenced earlier, and just one time I remember I was in state capitol. We had a piece of legislation up. There was something going on, and my cell phone rings, and I flip it open. Back then.
Flip phone, folks.
Yes.
Look it up.
And the woman answers, "Is this Donovan Pepper?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Please hold." And I said, "Okay." And then, oh my gosh, I just forgot the name of what's the restaurant chain? With custards with the cheese curds. Culver's.
Yeah, Culver's.
Thank you. I'm drawing a blank.
Right.
Anyway, she goes, "Please hold for Mr. Culver." And I'm like, okay. So
right.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
He goes, "Donovan, this is Mr. Culver, so-and-so. I'm calling about this piece of legislation. I got your note about this." And anyway, I remember it was just the funniest thing. Again, I had, we worked with a lot of the McDonald's franchisees, other franchisees, but, not the CEO of Culver's.
Exactly.
Culver's was
Mr. Culver.
Yes, and they weren't that big in Illinois at the time.
But they were
a few branches here.
Right.
And so, but I remember getting that phone call. I was like, wow. Mr. Culver called me. And I'm in Springfield. I'm in a committee room. What? But anyway, that was one time I just still laugh. But subsequently, over the time, I got to meet a lot of CEOs of restaurant chains and a lot of independent chefs, head chefs, and things like that. So it was a great experience. But that was the one moment. It's like, wow.
Crazy.
Mr. Culver.
Right. Exactly.
So anyway.
Right. And I love Please hold one moment. Mr.
Yes.
Culver will
Yes.
be. And were you thinking like, who the heck is Mr. Culver? Were you?
I had to think for a second. I've been to Wisconsin, so I've seen him.
But still, I don't know that I would connect those dots, right? Like,
Yes.
Mr. Culver? Do I know Mr. Culver?
Yes. It was like, okay. Anyway, but I use that example.
That's so
that
good.
was one. Wow.
Right, exactly. Like, oh, interesting. I bet my buddies from college aren't getting calls from Mr. Culver.
Exactly.
Some of those things along the way, you just think, yeah, I don't know that anyone would really believe this, right?
Right. Well, I got a call from the guy who started Jimmy John's once.
All right.
He called him.
Also a Springfield guy, right?
Champaign. Well, he went
Champaign. Right. Yeah.
He's a U of I
That's
guy.
right.
Yeah. Anyway, great guy. But I had a nice opportunity to meet with him.
That's
with him.
awesome. That's so good.
Yeah.
So you're with the Chicagoland Chamber. You're with the Restaurant Association, and then was the next stop at Walgreens?
No, I
you
did
had something in between, didn't you?
Telecom.
Oh, that's right. That's right. A little Meritech, right?
Exactly.
SBC.
Yep. Meritech SBC. Did a little few years.
How was that?
Wonderful. I mean, it was again different industry,
right?
Something I
completely different.
Never really done. It really,
utility-ish, right?
Very much so.
Right?
Very much so. And it was just a fascinating time because a lot was happening in the telecom world with cable. And even subsequent after I left, there was that whole conglomeration with AT&T, SBC ultimately, bought AT&T wireless carrier. So it was a great time to be involved in telecom. So,
right.
Yeah. And then that's when I really first started doing community engagement.
Oh,
that was
interesting.
One of the first time. So I was focused on communities.
Right.
Across Illinois, and particularly in the South Suburban region.
Sure.
Chicago and South Suburban region. So that was when I first really understood how philanthropy and philanthropic actually coincides with the civic and the business side.
Right.
So that was really a great starting point for me to really see that and understand how it all works together.
Right. That's so good. And was that kind of a leadership top down, or was that more of a grassroots that kind of led there?
It was both.
Okay.
I have to say it was really both.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the leadership understood that, hey, in order for Ameritech to truly be part of the communities that we, work in, live in,
exactly.
and, provide service to, we really should be involved and get engaged with organizations and entities that really matter locally. And so that was obviously from the top down, but I think particularly from the bottom up, it was, I got to determine which of these organizations and industries really aligned with our philosophy, but also understood that, hey, yes, they're this big, huge telecommunications company. But guess what? I can pick up the phone and call Donovan if I have an issue or concern. So I've got that local connection.
Right.
So I think that truly matters to a lot of communities.
Completely. You personalize it, right? And you're going to be present and proximate to and with, right?
With those individuals, yeah. And, and I, fast forward when I went to Walgreens, obviously overseeing local government for all 50 states, Donovan Pepper can't be
the only one.
The only one. And fortunate because we had retail operations in these communities, whether our management team, the store manager, even the clerk to the pharmacist, obviously knows their community and knows it much better. So, even when I would have to come in, I could always find someone that worked locally, knew the mayor, worked with the alderman, the council member, and so had that connection. So
that's really good.
That's really, what building that
absolutely,
grassroots.
Right? That's so interesting. So would you use and leverage kind of the local presence, or would you, right? I mean, you'd have to, right? Because you're still just some guy, right?
Out of the corporate office in Deerfield.
Exactly, right? Versus, oh no, we got John Morris, who's been the store manager for 20 years, right? So
exactly.
And then did you have to do, or did you want to do training with those folks?
Totally.
Right?
Totally. Oh yeah, we educated them on, number one, what are the issues corporately, what are the larger issues, and quite frankly, how locally they can be impactful and support those, whether it's, when we brought in a member of Congress, when we brought in a legislative leader or a legislator to come, sit down for coffee. So we educated them on the issues so that they could communicate.
And then here are a couple talking points to bring up, but better coming from you than from me.
Exactly. So we get a lot of that And again, it just, locally.
Right. Well, you have to, right?
Yeah.
Again, you've got to leverage, and I think that's a skill that may be lost with today's generation, that you don't have to have all the answers. In fact, you're better if you don't have all the answers, right? You're stronger as a team by pulling in these pieces, right?
Exactly, no question about it. And look, I will say technology has changed
absolutely
the way we engage with advocacy, and so now there's no question, push of a button, text,
right.
You can you can communicate and at least get your point across. So from back when I first started, no, it was a fax. Or it was picking up the phone. It was dialing a number.
Thanks for bringing that up. Haven't had fax, I don't think, yet on the podcast, on the intersection. So thank you. There's that intersection of technology and I don't know, whatever that was.
Exactly. Hey, we had remember the Xerox?
Exactly.
Remember those? Come on.
I do. Yeah, those early, and that early
runoff
paper,
machine.
Right? Exactly.
The
right.
Carbon, the
right.
carbon.
Oh, yeah. Good thing with that technology has improved that.
Changed. So with technology, there are, and especially with social media and social, certainly has changed how we communicate to elected officials. But at the end of the day, it's still the same strategy.
Absolutely, right? And there still needs to be this at some point in the relationship. Or it becomes very transactional, and that can't benefit really anyone, right?
Exactly. No question about that. Being able to engage, and I think we all had this experience to a certain degree during COVID.
Right.
Completely. When you literally could not go outside your home, you could not go out, you couldn't fly somewhere, couldn't be in the same room with someone. How do you still manage to complete what you need to do without that interaction? Now, we managed. We got through it.
We did.
And there were a lot of beneficial, of course, terrible things that happened as a result of COVID, but there were a lot of beneficial things that we learned we can communicate, outside of being one-on-one.
Exactly.
In a room,
true.
That you
Very
can
true.
still get work done being remote.
Right.
Or,
yes.
But at the same time, do you miss some of those things?
You do.
The cues, little tiny things, not being in the same room.
Right.
You do.
You have to, right? And hard to believe that was 6 years ago also, right?
Short
my gosh, right? But yes, and I think it has opened up, certainly those of us of a certain generation, right, that we don't have to be proximate to get the work done, right? I think there are still a lot of ancillary benefits to it.
Yes.
But by and large, we can really do a lot of work, apart, together but apart, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's okay, right? And yet there are roles that we also know, whether it's retail at Walgreens or in the homes that we staff 24/7, you can't do that work, right? Exactly. You have to be proximate. You have to be present.
Exactly.
So that will continue to move the needle, right? And be and I think that it needs to be kind of at the forefront, right? So that's important. So as you're kind of in rooms, right? And you mentioned President Obama, and so you kind of were kind of riding shotgun for some of that journey, right? And you saw him and reconnected, and then he's sitting in the big chair, right?
Yes, having the opportunity again. I mean, President Obama, I think, is the only individual I think I can say I knew when. Right. That I think of. I was trying to think of all our presidents, but no, so I've been very fortunate. And also been fortunate to see his be there for his inaugurations, be there for the victory celebrations during the elections, and and then his farewell. And I had an opportunity during his farewell tour to be at the White House for a goodbye party that he hosted, which was really
pretty special.
Yeah, it was very special, and it was a true blessing to be at
Absolutely.
That
Nice.
So
yeah. Well done, you. Well done, you.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. So again, kind of you're here. You're a kid from the West Side, right? And yet you're in that room. So that's got to be pretty special, right? And so want to just kind of dive a little bit into other pieces, right? Sure. So your transition, from Walgreens, from this, large entity, right, with a lot of tentacles, right, and who's going through some challenges, right? And I think it's fair to say. And so, and now you've landed at Cozen. And so how has that transition been for you personally and professionally? And then we can kind of build off of that.
Sure. No, it's been great. And, my time at Walgreens was absolutely amazing. And one thing I was going to mention real quick, the best experience I think in my life, was during COVID.
Interesting.
Surprisingly enough. And it was, when, working for a healthcare company at the time and a retailer.
Right.
At the time during the time.
Pretty significant role in those days,
very significant role. And, just, being involved and engaged in number one, back when we were, number one, trying to operate as an essential business.
Right.
When no one knew, we were literally building the plane as we were flying it.
Exactly.
How do you still operate a business with the parameters,
right?
That, whether it was city government,
given these constraints, all of this, right?
So how do you still do this to serve the public that needed to still have access to, healthcare needs, medication, as well as
PPE
goods,
and everything else, right?
PPE and all that. So that was just an exciting. It was crazy, but exciting. But then, and then when we started testing for the COVID virus, rolling out testing opportunities across the country was absolutely, it was insane. It was crazy. It was just like boom, boom, boom. But it was just exciting and enlightening to be a part of that.
Right.
And
what a logistical case study.
It really was. And I will say there are a lot of smarter people than me, involved in the day-to-day, getting that out, working with the federal government and all that to make it happen. But the last part was when the virus was available. I'm sorry, the vaccine was available.
Right.
And ensuring, as you remember very well, the rounds of first the seniors, people who truly need it, had health conditions that required, being vaccinated first. And then, particularly my company and another company, we were the first two that the federal government tapped to go into long-term care facilities, CILAs,
completely,
and, other places to vaccinate those, because they were the ones who needed. And so I remember the days, and again, they all blur together, but being on the ground, watching vaccination clinics take place, watching people get protected, to hopefully get our country back up. That was, to me, the most rewarding thing that I've ever been a part of. And again, I think of some of the cool things, victories, just exciting going to inaugurations of presidents and all that stuff. Nothing is more impactful than watching us attempt to save lives, and really get our economy and our country back going. So that was, and again, I would never have had that experience without being at Walgreens to see that. So again, it was great. Fast forward now, working for Cozen O'Connor. So Cozen is a law firm. We have a law firm. We're about 1,000 lawyers across the country. We have offices pretty much throughout the U.S. and Canada. But we have a government affairs practice. We call it Public Strategies. Okay. So, and they do government affairs. We represent clients at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. Nice. And so it's great. We have offices probably in about nine cities, states across the country. And so my role, which is a little unique in this firm, is because of the role that I did at Walgreens, was really working across the country, connecting, a lot of the local government organizations, like the Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, working with partisan, convening those groups and being kind of the focal point. So my role will be essentially doing what I did for Walgreens, but with the firm for our different clients. So we have different clients we represent now, everything from pharmacy, we represent telecommunications, airlines, ride share companies.
Feels like some of the groups that
some of the groups
that you've dabbled in before,
Exactly. So it's really great. It's really great that I've had an opportunity to work in those spaces and now represent these companies, with this larger firm, and focused on maybe some nuanced issues, whereas in some of the other roles, it's been very broad based. but now they're specific.
You can come in with a little different perspective, right?
Exactly. So my role again was brand new. The CEO really thought that I could bring value to the whole firm and working with the different offices and their clients, as well as trying to support, our current clients here in Illinois.
That's so great. And again, knowing you and your just general curiosity, you'll glean information, right, from these clients that the partners and others really never thought of, right? Yeah. Because you're coming at it from such a different perspective. That'll be really good.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. I think I mentioned 2 weeks ago, I was just in D.C., Washington, D.C. for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. They host an annual winter meeting, as well as normally a summer meeting. But so the winter meeting's always in D.C., where they go to Capitol Hill, they lobby, they bring in speakers and topics. And, and again, a lot of these
classic folks, lobby day, right?
For those. Lobby, they do the Hill, the Hill meetings, exactly. But a lot of these people have known me in my previous capacity, with Walgreens.
Yeah.
And but it's because of that, now being able to have the relationships, being able to talk to these individuals that either run these organizations or are members of these groups.
Right.
Now, bringing, having built that relationship from that foundation, now I can go in and share, whatever it is the client might have.
That's good.
That's good. So, so it's been a great few months.
They'll take your call, right? That's a good thing, right? In our businesses, right? It's you can't downplay that, right?
It does. It certainly helps.
Right. I mean, you're not Mr. Culver, but people are still taking your call, right?
Got that right. Oh, Donovan, I think I've heard of it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Do you want me to call next time? Hold, please. Mr. Pepper will be joining you.
Yeah, that won't get me. I'd like to see that, but that'll never happen. But no, never say
it's not going to open a door for you, but I think we'd enjoy it, right? We'd have some fun with it.
Exactly. No. That's great.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, it's great, but having a wonderful time.
That's great. Love to hear. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That'll be really fun. So kind of as we wrap things up, obviously you're fed by all of this great work, right? And you get juice. How else do you feed yourself, right? I mean, obviously, family and other pursuits, but kind of what else is on your docket these days?
Well, so I think I shared. I don't know if I shared this. So my wife and I, who I met in college.
Yes, love it.
We've been married now 25 years.
Congrats.
As of last year, and we've been together for 35 years.
There you go.
So took me a little bit.
Took you 10 years to convince her, huh?
Yes. That was a lot of convincing, let me tell you. And maybe an ultimatum.
Nice job.
Maybe an ultimatum involved.
On her end, not yours.
Right, exactly. But we have two great boys.
Love it.
They're both in college. We've got one at Knox College and one up at Marquette. And so, they still keep me young.
There you go. Love it. Right.
So trying to figure out what their, next steps will be after college has been great. But with that said, I enjoy, I play a lot of golf. I'm not a good golfer by no stretch of the imagination,
right?
But I love to golf.
We'll have to get out this summer because I'm exactly Columbus Park, right?
Exactly. Columbus is about my game. Oak Park Country Club. No,
right.
So.
Unless someone's nice enough to invite us, right?
Exactly. Then I'll happily play.
I am America's guest, so if
makes two of us. It's good. We can be.
Let's tag team.
My plus two, yes. But no, I love to golf. I mean, I enjoy. I enjoy traveling. Obviously, I've traveled for work,
right.
Generally, but I've started understanding, and actually, I had a friend of mine taught me this, that whenever you go travel to a new city, if you're able to tack on an extra day up front, or a day on the end, to see if you can see, what's going on in that city or that town.
That's really good counsel.
Yeah, and I've never done that, and I always say about 9 years ago maybe. We went to D.C. as a tourist. And we decided for spring break, and I go to D.C. all the time. I'm
exactly.
on Capitol Hill all the time.
But you're in, you're out.
I'm in, I'm out. Right. I've never been. So about 8 years ago, we took our boys for spring break. And it was just the most
Walked the mall, went
Smithsonian. We did that. We did the zoo. We did the Nationals, Washington Nationals.
Nice.
With my Walgreens hat.
Everybody thought
I was wearing the Nationals.
Pretty cool park, though, right?
Cool.
I like that park a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so got to see D.C. as a tourist. So I say, that's one thing I've failed to do. And luckily, a friend of mine taught me, hey, try to tag on a day or two. And
that's really good.
Sometimes the wife is not so happy, But again, being able to see a place as a tourist, when I was with a mayor a couple of weeks ago, he always makes every time he comes to DC, he makes a trip to one of the museums. Always
so good,
on the
right?
end, and he's a California-based mayor, and so he's like, "Look, I don't get out here that often, but he always makes that time, and that's something I'd never done. I'd never been to the African American Museum of History. I'd never been to the Holocaust Museum. All the years that I've been there.
Think about
I finally got an opportunity. So those are things I try to do
good.
now.
I like that.
I like to travel and actually enjoy things and not there for business.
Right. Nice. That's good stuff.
And I cook. And I cook.
And you cook, right? Exactly.
I
So
do.
you got to, while you're tacking on that extra day, you got to have a nice meal too, right?
Exactly.
So
because
you're doing some site prep, right? If you will, right?
Getting ready.
Exactly.
So,
I might need to take that, right? And try to make that at home.
I do,
right?
and I do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So my parting shot is, so if someone is foolish enough to want to get into this government advocacy, lobbying, whatever you might call it, how might someone, so if one of your boys says, Dad, I like what you've done, what's your counsel there?
Well, my counsel is, and I always tell people, you don't, it's not rocket science. It's a skill set that most of us have just by being, a part of a family, being part of an organization where you advocate for your interests.
Ooh, I like that.
I mean, if you think about it, if I'm trying to convince my wife that, our living room should be this color instead of that color,
right.
Then I'm going to point out the reasons why I think that
exactly.
So we're all advocates in our own way. How you translate that into a career is not as difficult as most people think.
Interesting.
You just really have to understand, number one, the process. Whether it's a political process, a governmental process.
Right.
How a bill becomes a law.
Right.
How a regulation impacts you. How do you change or amend a regulation? Those are some of the technical things.
Right. Some nuances,
there. But in terms of just getting into the business, if it's a personal aspect that you care deeply about, find the organizations, the entities, that matter.
Right.
And, figure out ways you can support them in that. If it's, from a business perspective, you're a business person and you want to develop something or build something or open a new store.
Right.
Understand what the process is for that and then be your own advocate. Or in some cases, hire someone
exactly.
like me.
Do you know anyone?
Yeah,
Don Pepper. We'll try to get his email right here. Exactly. Right.
But if you need help, again, there are people like
dpepper@cozen.com.
I didn't say that, JR.
Exactly. No, somebody had to though.
But again, but in terms of someone wanting to advocate, whether it's an issue, whether it's and again, in this political partisan world, you can easily get caught up into things, take you down this path or that path. But I think generally speaking, you can do it. You just have to be passionate about what it is you want to do. And again, if it's personal, if it's a business related or civic minded or just civically engaged to ensure that, this will happen or not happen in your community. It's really just as easy as writing an email, picking up the phone, or literally standing out in front of your elected representative's office saying, hey, I'd like to speak to them.
Right.
So again, it's not, as I said, it's not rocket science. I think anyone can do it.
That's great.
But again, you can go to school. You don't even need a political science degree. You don't need a law degree. But,
you need a good head on your shoulders,
you need a good head on your shoulders and understand at least the process. If I'm calling Congressman Danny Davis's office because there's a pothole that I need repaired, then obviously,
maybe a little misdirected.
More local. Exactly. Go a little local. You got issues with the post office? Yes.
Yes. Right. Exactly.
But anyway,
figure out where those alignments are. Right. Feds, state, local.
Exactly. And so, but again, I think that there are a lot of people who just are good advocates.
Right.
And who do it personally, who do it naturally.
Right.
And sometimes you just need a little direction.
Right. But, and I think maybe this will be our last, but advocacy works, right? And you've seen that, right?
Question.
So
no question. Yeah.
People need to hear the local voices.
Yes. Yeah. And don't discount that because it does matter. And again, I think, when you look at some of the big issues that, we've dealt with, we're dealing with now, we've dealt with, and even historically, it's really been advocates that have made the difference, that have either brought it to the forefront to ensure that this matter is addressed.
Right.
And it's addressed in a way that hopefully can help the majority of people.
That's great. That's a pretty good soundbite right there. I like that. I think we're going to end on that, folks.
Okay.
Donovan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so
really,
much.
Really great. Learned a ton.
People.
Just really good stuff. So again, thank you for joining us on The Intersection by Oak Leyden. RJ McMahon as the CEO, Donovan Pepper, just a wonderful guest, and so many great insights. Like us, comment on LinkedIn. Please subscribe if you haven't already to our YouTube. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you.